There we go, and we are live. Hey, everybody. This is episode 5. I want to say it's 5. I haven't done one of these in a long time, of the Support Class podcast.
I think it's 6.
Is it 6? Okay, well, then I can change it. I can change it after the podcast is over. That's fine.
Can we use Roman numerals, though?
Absolutely. This can be, like Star Wars. I think that's a great idea.
Excellent.
All
right, cool.
Sorry, I was playing myself back in my ear there real quick. Okay, yep, we are live. And haven't done one of these in a long time. We're not able to do them as often as we'd like, simply because talking about anxiety to an internet full of people you don't know is daunting and sometimes terrifying. And it's not only hard to find people to do it on a regular basis, it's hard for me to do it on a regular basis. So, I see the chat room starting to fill up, so I appreciate that. And for those of you who don't know, if the name didn't give it away, this is a podcast for people with generalized, gamers specifically, but anybody really, with generalized anxiety, any form of PTSD, depression. We sit around and we talk about some of the issues we deal with. We talk about our symptoms, because our symptoms are scary things. We all experience them, and we talk about ways of coping. And aside from Taylor, who is kind of my regular my podcast mate on these things that we do, we have 2 very special guests tonight, and any gamers in the crowd probably know exactly who they are. I'll introduce Susan first, my good friend Susan, who has not been on the podcast in a while. Susan, it's so nice to have you back on.
I am so glad to see you. I have not seen you since PAX.
Since PAX,
my friend. It has been ages.
Since PAX, it feels like a really long time.
Yeah.
And yep. For anybody who doesn't know, I was on a panel with Susan at PAX, and we became pretty good friends. And Susan, you're just an absolute delight. Like I already feel better just having you on. So it's just been way too long. And I will see you again at PAX West. And looking forward to that. And we also have Mike Flutter. Mike, I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I followed you on Twitter. And I know you're not with Games Radar. Jesus, I'm thinking yeah. I know you're not Game Informer anymore. But what are you doing these days? Where can people find you?
I'm actually working on a special project that has not yet been announced at Bithell Game.
Scoops.
So, that is about all I can say. Although I get to say my favorite word in the whole wide world. I get to say soon.
Nice.
Yes.
I like it.
And as I've said before, I'm really excited for soon to become now, and I can finally talk about this thing.
Outstanding. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, Mike.
I'm just going to chime in and say I know what thing is. Thing is exceptional.
Well, thank you.
Mike, after we're over, you're going to have to get into my DMs and give me like a hint, just the barest little hint of what you're doing. Because I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Bithell. So yeah,
he's good people, and I am very happy to be working with him and Alexander Slawinski.
He did that was Thomas Was Alone, right?
Mike did Thomas Was Alone.
Yep.
He did Volume. He did a project for Google Daydream when that came out called Earthshape. And there's some other stuff in the works right now.
Looking forward to what you're doing, man. Thanks. So as I said, this is a podcast about anxiety. And for people in chat, I know we've got a few people in chat right now who said, I just got hit with a massive bout of depression. This is awesome for someone with anxiety. Guys, we encourage you to speak up in chat, talk to each other, not just to us. And if you have a question that you want to ask us, anybody, we'll be more than happy to answer it. I've got my eye on the chat right now. So even though I won't be typing you guys because I'm going to focus on what we have going on here, I can see everything that's being typed. So feel free to ask a question. I'll address it, or any of us will.
Okay, I just need to interject real quickly.
Please. Because
you're probably going to see me like looking to the side a lot because Vanessa Huffins, the deer in my backyard. It's around about this time is when she comes for dinner, so I like to be on the lookout so I can spot her and her brand new baby.
She's bringing the baby.
She's got the baby back. She got the baby.
Yeah, she had the baby.
That's awesome.
It's covered in spots, and it just makes my day. So that's what I'm doing when I do that. I'm looking for Vanessa Huffins.
That's fantastic. No, and that's actually excellent therapy. Also,
it is really.
Animals are extremely therapeutic. So you know what I thought we would talk about today is and Susan, I know that this is something that you suffer with, and I deal with it quite a bit. Is guilt.
Yep.
Anxiety or guilt related to anxiety. And so people in chat may be wondering what I'm talking about. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a brief example from my own life, and then I'll open it up to Mike and Susan and Taylor. What we mean by anxiety-ridden guilt is that if you're somebody like me, for example, and you deal with hypochondria, like we've got some new people in chat, I know. So my anxiety mostly manifests as severe, extremely crippling hypochondria. I have been dying of multiple illnesses my entire life, right? Or at least that's the vast ocean that my anxious mind would have me drown in. And when I say guilt, what I mean is when I figure out eventually, when I go to the doctor and he says, okay, you're not actually dying of anything, you don't need to worry about it, I will immediately start thinking about all those individuals who actually are dying of some horrible disease, and I feel a crushing sense of guilt because I am worried about what is essentially a phantom illness. And this individual is actually dying of something. And not only are they dying of something, they're doing it with much more aplomb and strength than I would probably do. And so I feel not just guilty, but incredibly trite and selfish for worrying about this when there are people out there who are actually dealing with real problems and real illnesses. So that's what I mean when I say anxiety-ridden guilt. Now, I want to open it up to the rest of the panel. If you guys don't mind, nobody has to say anything. Nobody is compelled to say anything here. But if you wanted to give some examples of anxiety-ridden guilt that you've experienced, feel free to do that. And we'll start with Susan.
Well, actually, mine is it's a little different. It's not guilt related to, there's a thing in my head and it's just me being crazy. And by the way, just I'm gonna say this. I use the terms crazy and sane as placeholders.
Sure.
They're not pejoratives. They're not diagnoses. Obviously,
Absolutely.
It's just to differentiate the days when you're in your right mind versus the days when you're not. And the days when you're not have degrees. I just kind of lump them all into, I'm crazy this day, I'm sane this day. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's, yeah, and that is not meant to offend anybody, and I do apologize if it does. It is just my verbal placeholder. For me, it's, what I do is I will have a crazy day. I will be crazy. This happened at PAX South, actually. I had an episode at PAX South. I was in a very, very, very bad way, completely had a breakdown. And the people I was there with had to take care of me. Mm. That I couldn't function. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk because that's just the thing that happens to me sometimes. And so I became a burden to these people. And I felt so ashamed and so horrified and so guilty that I forced these people not only to take care of me, but to see me like that. Now on a sane day, I know that these are people who care about me, they love me, they want me to be okay. And if our positions were reversed, I don't give a shit. You're having a bad day. I'm going to help you.
Absolutely.
You're crying, you got snot going down your face. I don't give a shit. Whatever. I love you. I'm going to take care of you. And logically, I know that they feel the same way, but at that time, and even still to a certain degree later, I want to fall into a pit and cover it over and just stay there forever because I feel so awful that I have been this, what I perceive as this terrible, terrible burden on these people who shouldn't have to deal with my crazy.
And Susan, I'm assuming that no matter how many times your friends or these people try to reassure you that is not the case, like that doesn't help.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And they do. I mean, just the fact that they do take care and they take amazing care of me. And they make sure, like, what do you need? How can we help? Do you need us to call your husband? Like, they are amazing and constantly reassure me. No, I'm always going to feel like I need to try and master this myself. And if I can't, I have to at least hide it from everybody so that I'm just dealing with it and they only get perfect me.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's something I think that, it's not quite the same as what I deal with, but I think that what you deal with is actually maybe even a little more mentally taxing than what, because for me, I'm internally compartmentalizing anything. I can't talk tonight. I'm internalizing everything, right? Like I'm bottling all this up, and all my guilt stays inside of me. When you're experiencing this, it's something that I imagine it's what makes it extremely difficult, or even more difficult, is the sense that you're projecting it on other people, and you're feeling, you know, now it's not just me who's having a problem. It's all my friends who are having a problem because they are being forced to take care of me
because of me, and also and there's still, I have a deep fear to the core of my being that if people know what I'm really like, they will hate me. So if you see me being 100% genuine, which is all you can be when you're having an episode,
absolutely,
you cannot dissemble at all. You know, I'm convinced Mike was there. So he saw all of this in action.
And I can, you know, assure you months later that, of course, you know, we were going to take care of you. I mean, of course we weren't going to walk away. So.
Yeah. It was, I mean, yeah.
No,
that's just how the brain works.
No, Suze, I mean, that's an incredibly difficult thing to talk about publicly. And I really thank you for opening yourself up like that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, here's the thing. When we first when we founded Take This, which is the mental health charity for gamers that we started in 2012, just hearing that people I looked up to and admired, and who to me totally had their shit together, were having the same kind of thoughts and worries and obsessing over what to wear to meetings and the whole thing, going through the exact same stuff I was like this huge weight that was lifted off of me and helped me move forward and function and start living the best version of my life. So it's still a little embarrassing, honestly, to talk about the various ways in which I'm broken, but if I can, pass it along and pay that forward, and somebody else starts to get to feel a little better and can start, living the best version of their life because I was like, yep, I'm wackadoo. What are you going to do? It's time well spent.
Well, and I think that reason right there is exactly why we're doing this podcast, right? Because there are other people out there who may not be as familiar with this kind of stuff as we are, or may not know, or maybe this is something that is just emerging for them and they don't really have a good beat on how to deal with it.
Right.
So I think podcasts like this and talking about it with people, I think that's really important. Which is why I'm so glad that you came on to share that story, Susan. Thank you so much for that. Sure. I want to move on to, and we'll go to Mike next and then Taylor. Now, Mike, again, if it's not something that you particularly want to talk about, nobody's going to force you to do it.
I'm here to talk. So, I definitely have, guilt related to my anxiety. And my anxiety, I want to say, is relatively newer. I think, I've suffered from depression for a number of years. The anxiety thing kind of built and manifested itself, I want to say, over the past 5 years or so. And a lot of times, like, I can manage it, but there are times where it's just a runaway, it's a runaway horse, and and the saddle's unbuckling and you're holding on for dear life. For me, a lot of that guilt comes from the way my anxiety manifested, and usually it's around things I can't control or things I want to be able to control, but I can't. So I'll give you an example, because this happened a little bit today. I was driving down to see my sister. My family was in the car. I was talking to my wife. I had recently been in a car accident. I was hit. I was sideswiped. And it was the first time I've ever been in a car accident, like on a road. Like, I've gotten into little, like, we backed into each other in a parking lot, but that's just frustrating. This is like, it was in the middle of New York City. And it was. Yeah. So of course, and I was almost out of the city. Like, it was on the approach to the Holland Tunnel. So it was like,
yeah, I remember you tweeting about that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really frustrating, because I was just almost in the clear. And so for today, like, all I want is for my insurance company, who has already told me that we've not received a claim from the other driver. As far as we're concerned, if it's word against word, we're taking your word. You're our our customer, and I believe the damage will bear out the fact that I was struck, not the other way around. But all I want them to say is, I want them to say it. I want them to put it in writing. You were not at fault. And what was causing me anxiety today was, you know, they called me on Friday and they said, "Hey, did you get a copy of the police report yet?" I said, "No, I gave you the information to get it." So I went in, I got it, and I looked at it, and the officer had drawn a diagram that didn't actually represent the traffic pattern properly.
Oof.
So I'm worried, and I'm like, should I call them? Should I tell them? Because I actually, while it was happening, took video so you can see, like, they only showed 2 lanes, and at one point it is only 2 lanes, but it's actually 3 lanes across right after the intersection. It's actually not even 3 lanes. It's not a lane on the right, and that's why I got into an accident, because someone tried to push past me. So I'm, of course, now perseverating over the fact that, no, this diagram is wrong. I don't want them to decide based on this diagram, even though I drew a diagram and scanned it and like put it as part of the as part of my documentation. You know, I just haven't heard anything from them. And what if they can't recover from the other insurance company? So I'm going over this and over this and over this and over this. And this is after something else happened on Thursday that caused me an enormous amount of anxiety. So I've just had this series of things, and this anxiety, like today, was manageable because Danielle was right there, and she was able to say, "All right, look, is this something you can control? Is this productive worrying, or is this worrying that isn't constructive?"
I have a question.
Yes.
Was what was setting you off that they were wrong, or that you might get a bad outcome?
That's a really great question. And
yeah.
I think I bounced back and forth. I think I was really frustrated that they were wrong. Like, this was drawn incorrectly, and that might have a negative impact on me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the chain of thinking. But that's a fantastic question. And on Thursday, there was a great deal of anxiety about something else. I can't go into detail, unfortunately, but it was something that was out of my control, and there was nothing I could do to really get my hands wrapped around that and steer it in a way that I thought would fix it. And I'm a fixer. This is why this is the dual-edged sword of what I think made me good at news and good at being a news writer and a reporter, and being as quick and dedicated to being right, but at the same time caused me a lot of anxiety, is that I wanted to control. And what happened when things started to get out of my control and I didn't think that I could get them right was I started to get tense. And the problem, and this is coming back to the guilt thing, the problem that happens after that is that I know how those interactions went and that they weren't ideal, and then I felt guilty about those interactions. So the fact of those interactions caused a series of, it was like an earthquake and then aftershocks, because it would be days where I would have these aftershocks of, I can't believe that happened the way it did. Yeah. I can't believe this interpersonal, connection, or interaction happened the way it did. And because on top of it, I had this problem with being a people pleaser, it's like this compounded thing that causes anxiety, and it's just something that just snowballs. And eventually, it kind of peters out, but it's this cycle of guilt. Like, I can't control it. I'm being, I'm inflicting, I've inflicted myself on people, or I am inflicting myself on people. I'm not the best person I can be for these people right now. And then, I did badly. I did badly. They're not going to forgive me. I did badly. And then it's just this.
So it's it's the snowballing effect of punishing yourself over and over and over, basically.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things, and it's this personal narrative versus the real narrative. This personal reality versus the real reality of the situation. And some days, and those sane days are when the personal reality and the actual events of what's going on and the way people feel are kind of in line. There's always perspective, but they're kind of overlapping pretty well. And it's those days where things don't work out so well, where your personal narrative just took a wrong turn, and that's not representative of what the environment is around you, that it starts to cause that snowball effect for me.
Yeah, so I've got some experience with this as well. One, and it's weird that something you said kind of I kind of latched onto, and it's the sense that it was something happened that was beyond your control, and I think for a lot of people, including myself, that kind of is the crux of a lot of anxieties. That it's not even so much the thing that I'm afraid of, is the fact that I can't control it, and there's nothing. In fact, one of my therapist actually theorized a while back. He says, John, I'm not so sure because here's the weird thing, right? Like I've been in multiple combat scenarios, right? Like multiple combat scenarios, and I was only scared the first time. Every time after that, combat didn't scare me. The prospect of combat today does not scare me. I could go back into combat tomorrow and be totally fine. But the idea of some phantom illness that I can't do anything about mortifies me, like puts me in mortal fear. And when that starts ramping up for me, I can't do anything. Like I am completely fucking useless and immobile and just and I think I think my therapist is on something here. I think a lot of this has to do with not even so much my fear of the illness, but the fear of the unknown. You know, like
sure.
I think I might just be terrified because when I'm in combat, I like there's one or two outcomes, right? I'm either going to live or I'm going to die, and it's either going to be my enemy or it's going to be me. And I can see my enemy. He's right there. I know what the target is. I know what the foe is, and I know how to neutralize the threat. Right? Like it's cut and dry. But when it comes to some kind of crazy illness I may or may not have, I don't know how to deal with that, and I don't know what's going to happen. And it's an alien. It's a battlefield that I am not familiar with. It's a battlefield where I have no weapons. I can't fight on that battlefield, and I think that's where a lot of my anxiety comes from. And Mike, it almost sounds like you kind of experienced the same kind of thing.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the things that causes me a lot of stress and a lot of like ripple anxiety, as it were, is I try to convert those things I can't control to things that I can control. And it's not always the best thing. Sometimes I just need to leave it alone. And sometimes, like, that's the hardest thing for me, is understanding and convincing myself that there are situations where inaction or choosing not to make a direct action is okay. Like, I don't need to try to redirect or steer. Sometimes if I've had a disagreement with somebody, sometimes like taking a step back, letting everybody get cooler heads is the right choice, because just the fact of interacting, and even if it's to apologize again or to explain again or to try to get on the same page again, is only going to be friction. It's only going to be more friction, and it's going to eventually start a fire, and it makes things worse.
One of the hardest things for people like us is to let someone be mad at you. Like, you know what? This person is just going to not feel good towards me for a while. The end. And you just got to sit there and eat it. Even though you're like, okay, but if I could just explain to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, guess what? They're just pissed. This is an intelligent person. They're just pissed or upset or hurt or whatever it is. And they're just going to be that until they're not. The end.
Well, I'll tell you what. As soon as after Taylor gives her piece, I think this is a good. I think we could come up with some good mitigation strategies for people out there who deal with this kind of thing. And I've got some ideas. Mike, I know this is not easy to talk about, man. Thank you so much for opening yourself up and sharing that.
No problem. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad if talking about this helps somebody or starts the conversation for somebody else, then it's all worth it. Absolutely.
And before we go to Taylor, I just want to point out real quick in chat, Jonathan Williams, it looks like you're having a tough time, man. If you need somebody to talk to, man, and you don't have a therapist handy, my Twitter handle is @MrMegative with an M. My DMs are open. You're always welcome to shoot me a DM, and we can talk, man. We'll talk about whatever you want. Taylor, why don't you do you have some do you have a point you want to make? Some guilt stemming from anxiety, an example. And now again, Taylor, you know that you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah. My guilt mostly stems from knowing other people have it worse than me. So.
Well, so that's.
Like, I know that's true. I mean, I think it's important to remember. Like, yes, there are other people who have it worse than you, but then there are people who have it worse than them, and there are people who have it better than you. You know what I mean? Like, it's all super relative. So, I feel like it's important I think you're allowed to feel the way you feel, right? So long as you acknowledge how you're blessed. Like, this part sucks, but I'm blessed in that I have, you know, I live in a house and I have access to clean water and I have good internet and those other things, so that you retain some kind of perspective, you know, without punishing yourself.
You know, to take it a step further, Taylor, I completely understand where you're coming from, Taylor. And I think a good thing to remember, well, twofold. One, I used to apologize for my anxiety all the time. All the time. Like, I'm sorry, I'm so anxious, guys, and I'm sorry I deal with this. But you know what my therapist told me? He says, I don't ever want you to apologize for your anxiety to anybody ever again, because, you know, no, you're not dying of it, even though it may feel like we're fucking dying of this shit some days. Even though we're not dying from anxiety, it is just as much an illness as any other illness. It's a mental illness. That's what we have. Like, there's a stigma around the word around the term mental illness, and just because you have a mental illness doesn't mean you're crazy or insane. Anxiety is a mental illness, and what I think what you have to do, Taylor, and what we all have to do, and this gets into mitigation strategies, is you have to understand that it does not define who you are. This is just one small part of what makes you Taylor. This is just one small part of what makes Susan Susan. This is who we are, and we can't, trying to shut it out and trying to deny it is only going to make it worse, right? So instead, what I would say is own it. Own your anxiety. Whenever it starts, and this is what I do, and it's helped me a great deal. Whenever my anxiety starts ramping up really bad like it has today, I tell it, I'm going to let you run your course for 5 minutes because I'm allowing you to. I am letting you do this, because I find that when you just try to shut it down, it gets worse. So let it do. So if you take the power away from it, and you let it do its thing on your terms, then you may not immediately feel any better, but this is all stemming from our subconscious mind. That's where anxiety comes from. It's from your reptilian mind, right? It's all about your fight and flight mechanisms, right? Sometimes we want to fight, right. Sometimes we want to run. But if you take the power away from your anxiety, then and take it back for yourself, eventually it's going to become somewhat easier to cope with. And I think that's a good place to start.
Right.
So kind of building off of that, talking about mitigation strategies, we'll shoot it back over to Mike. Like, I don't know, man, think about what I just said, and does that make any sense to you at all?
Absolutely. In fact, it's something similar. You know, my son had a rough time in school this year, and at the end we had him going to a group and working things through, and I met with his counselor every other week, and one of the things that they've been imparting to him is the same thing. Give it, you know, I can't remember how much time they told him, but give him like a minute to kind of indulge those thoughts, allow them to happen, and then take a step back from them. So that concept of taking that power and allowing yourself to go through that, to feel that. I mean, it works, and you know, for me, it's something that I have been trying to do, because once it was interesting. You know, as I talked to her about the things that he's been learning, it's like, okay, I'm gonna give that a try too and see how that helps, and it's been useful.
Susan, Susan, what about you? Like, I know that I know that we've talked kind of mitigating this just a little bit, but bouncing off of what Mike said, what is just one method that you use whenever you feel your guilt start ramping up, especially in relations to for example, your friends at PAC South? What do you do to kind of bring yourself back down into the, I'll use a term that makes my wife laugh, back down to the mustard, right? Like, because you should always be down to the mustard, right? No, hold on. I'm going to explain what this means. That's what this means for everybody in chat, right? So in the red, right? In the red is the ketchup. You never want to be in the ketchup, right? The green is the relish, okay? So the goal ideally is to get yourself down to the relish, right?
Okay,
but most of the time,
pickles are a crime against man.
No, they're not, Susan. That's ridiculous.
No,
Susan, that's ridiculous.
I fundamentally disagree. You know, I saw you tweeting about this, and I said to myself, I'm going to let Susan have this one.
No, pickles are a hate crime. It's factual. I'm sorry.
Susan.
Have you not had good pickles? Like, that's my question.
Okay, well, I can't answer that. I don't know.
Susan, I'm learning more about you than I ever cared to know. Like, this is terrible. This is terrible. This changes everything. This changes everything. But
I will agree that bread and butter pickles, those things are an abomination.
Yes, we can agree on that. I accidentally bought some.
And little mini gherkins are also foul.
No. But there's a sandwich place that makes their own like really good dill pickles around here, and they don't taste like. See, okay, so here's the secret: never buy pickles from the aisle unless you're buying them from the refrigerated aisle.
Okay, so look, here's the thing. Okay, so when I was little, in my neighborhood, we had a legit butcher shop, right? Like an old you see it in New York, butcher shop, and they made their own pickles. And what I would do when I was little, I would go over to this enormous pickle barrel, and I would just open up the lid and just smell it because it smelled amazing. Store-bought pickles never smell like that, man.
So if you buy them and they're warm, then no. Okay. But the refrigerated ones like Clausen, decent. Yeah. But if you can find a place that makes their own,
Mike, I once had a pickle that was made with hot peppers and IPA. Dude.
See, I would be all over that. And I'm not usually an IPA fan, but I could do a pickle.
It was a beer pickle, and it was amazing. I think Susan's about to drop from the call. She's like, I can't take this anymore.
I can't. Well, okay. But anyway.
But so anyway, so
it's a great podcast about
three things I don't like. I don't like hot peppers. I don't like beer, and I don't like pickles. So.
For anybody like I just love the fact that for anybody who saw this like 5 minutes ago and was like, oh, a podcast about anxiety. This is great. They come in and we're talking about fucking dill pickles and shit.
Well, you know what? But here's the thing. One of the reasons why people don't talk about this is because they're afraid it's going to be this big, heavy conversation.
Wait, hold on, Susan. Are we talking about anxiety or pickles now?
Well, both.
Okay,
getting into a fight with people about
Gotcha.
pickles?
Just want to make sure.
Is this the great game industry bone-in versus boneless
debate? Okay, it's boneless. It's a nugget. I'm not saying it isn't delicious.
It is. And nuggets are fine, but they ain't wings.
Thank you. You gotta have a bone. Give me a wing. Sorry. Anyway. So,
it's got really off topic.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No. That's perfect. That's what I want. Lighten the mood.
Right. Well, this is the thing. Keying into what you said about like this does not define you. It does not have to. Like every conversation about this condition that you have does not have to be a super emotional downer, gloom and doom, depress everybody in the room conversation. Sometimes it will be, absolutely, but what I do, the thing that helps me the most is remembering that having a mental illness is fundamentally no different than having a physical illness.
Absolutely.
Right? I take a pill to help my blood pressure. I take a pill to help my brain chemistry. Zero difference. There's absolutely no difference. So, do I apologize to my friends about having high blood pressure? Of course I don't. Do I apologize to if I have a splitting headache and I need to take an Excedrin? Do I feel guilty about that? No. Then why should I feel guilty about needing, to take an anxiety pill when I'm in the middle of a crowd and I feel like I need to run away screaming?
Yep.
Right? Same thing. It's just coming from a different source. And people are comfortable with physical illnesses because you see them. You've experienced them to a greater or lesser degree, right? Like you might not know what it feels like to have an ulcer, but you've had a stomach ache before. So you can relate, right? So when you meet someone, they're like, oh, I have an ulcer. Like, oh, wow. Okay, I'm on the same page with you. Whereas our brains literally work differently than other people's. So it's tough for them to sort of understand, like, if I say I'm having a panic attack, they're like, oh, you just need to calm down. Like, no, bitch, you don't understand. And if I tell you I have depression and you say you'll take me out to cheer me up, I will cut you, because that is just, bless your heart, you're trying, and I appreciate that, but that's just not how it works.
I was wondering if we were going to get a bless your heart on this podcast.
Oh God, yeah, you can't talk to me and not.
Okay, I'm just making sure. You know,
can I tell kind of a story that kind of drives that point home?
Please
do.
So I suffer from migraines. Like, now, not so bad as an adult, but I suffered from them as a kid. Like, one of my earliest memories is of having migraines when I was in preschool. Every Monday, my mom would pick me up. I would have a terrible migraine. I would go home, I would scream, and then I would vomit, and then I would fall asleep.
Oh my god!
And it was like that through most of my childhood.
If you've never had a migraine, it's difficult for you to understand. It's not just a bad headache.
Yeah, I've never actually had one. Like, I've never had a migraine. Like,
you're freaking lucky. I've had chronic migraines since I was 2 years old.
So you understand exactly what I'm saying, and I don't know how yours have gone as you have matured, but mine, because I now know the signs. Like, you live with it, and you know the signs, and you start to understand what to look for in your body when something bad's gonna happen. And you know what the triggers are, and you know exactly, how to mitigate them. So I don't get terrible I still get migraines. I know how to head them off, and I know how to, if I let them get to a point where they're really bad, 9 times out of 10, I know how to deal with it so that I can reverse course. But as a kid, I didn't have those coping skills. Right. So what would happen was, her name was Mrs. Akiki. She was the nurse in our elementary school. And there were many days, sometimes multiple times a week, where I would be in her office, the lights off. She would turn the lights off. There would be a basin by the cot. She would call my mom. My mom would come and pick me up as soon as she could, which wasn't always immediately, but, she would get there as soon as she could. I got to 3rd grade. So this had happened in 1st grade. This had happened in 2nd grade. So I've been through 2 years at this school already. The nurse.
Were they giving you medication, or did they not know what was up?
I got children's Tylenol. I mean, I got whatever you could get at the time. There wasn't.
It's like shooting a paperclip at a fucking meteor.
Exactly. And especially when you're a kid and you don't know the signs, you don't know how to respond to the signs. And then I got to the point where kind of 2nd grade, where I was able to communicate. My 2nd grade teacher was like, I have a migraine. And she'd be like, okay, go to the nurse. Hopefully you can come back. But if not, we'll send somebody down, Mrs. Akiki will send for your stuff and you'll go. Okay, fine. I got to 3rd grade, and my 3rd grade teacher didn't believe me.
Yeah, of course she didn't.
So she conference with my parents. Mrs. Orlando was her name. Looked at my mom and said, "Do you really think Michael gets migraines?" My mom almost lunged across the table at her because, at least once a week for my entire childhood, coming home screaming and throwing up was the pattern. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most offensive things that my mom, who had watched me, her child, go through, to hear from a teacher like calling me a liar. So you've already said it, if you've never had a migraine, you don't know what depths your body can sink when you're in the throes of one. And it's not just your head. It's your whole body gets completely screwed up. And if someone ever looked at you while you were having a migraine and said, I don't really get it. I don't believe it. Just take a couple of that. I'm sure you'll be, it'll be fine. It works for me. I get headaches too. It works for me. Or I feel down sometimes. Right. So I just go out and I just watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love that one.
It cheers me up. So, I mean, that was kind of my long way to get to this point. Like, yeah. If I just told you a story, about like me going home as a kid and throwing up is the only way that I would end my day, 1 out of every, 6 or 7 days. Right. And then a teacher said, I don't believe it's real. It's the same thing if you're suffering from depression or anxiety. If someone looks at you and says, just go watch a comedy, you'll be fine. I'll cheer you up.
You know what's funny about that, Mike?
I don't believe.
What, not funny, but it's relevant. We had a question in chat a few minutes ago, and it directly correlates to what you're saying. Dasjot, I think I'm pronouncing that right in chat, asked, how many in here feel comfortable telling others about their condition? And it's stories like that, Mike, that make people like us not want to tell fucking anybody. Because my mom, my mother, I love my mom. Okay? I love her. She doesn't believe in all this anxiety crap. Okay? It's just, John, you need to calm down. And every time she says, John, you need to calm down, I want to fight the Hulkbuster every time she says that. That's how...
That's fair.
That's how upset I get when she says, John, you just need to step back and reassess. I'm like, okay, Mom. I'll do that. I'll step back and reassess. And I usually reassess by just hanging the fucking phone up. But that's kind of our curse, right? Is that we want to tell people these things. I want to tell people about this stuff. But there's still such a stigma around anything that has to do with the mind that you hear this, or people, like, for example, in my job, if like I can't really tell a whole lot of people that I'm in therapy because that could jeopardize my career. And it's one of those.
Any job you have, that's true.
Yeah.
If you get a boss who doesn't get it, then it's going to be held against you. And even if it shouldn't be held against you, even if it legally can't be held against you,
it will be.
You can't change their perceptions.
Yeah.
You can't change the way they think. And what ends up being, it's like, oh, he just can't handle it. It's like, well, no, that's not it. Like 95% of the time, I'm golden, but yeah.
It's like saying to somebody with leukemia, like,
just take an Advil.
Like, I just feel like if you just tried harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Have you tried not having leukemia?
Exactly. Have you tried making your blood cells work better? I mean, have you really tried?
Susan, I've literally had members of my own family say, John, have you tried just not worrying about it? Oh, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I'll do that.
I had never okay.
I'm scared.
Somebody had told me that like years ago. That's great advice.
Wow. How have I been like this? How have I been on this planet for 46 years? Thought about killing myself numerous times, and yet never thought I should just stop worrying about it.
I mean, but let's talk about the employment thing, because if you get up the courage to say to somebody, look, this is causing me a lot of anxiety. Like this is bothering me, and I'm having a real hard time with this because of this.
Right.
And the answer might be, well, I just don't understand why you're making a big deal of this.
Yeah.
Why is this the end of the world?
Oh, well, asshole, let me tell you. I mean, it's like, but again, like, at the same time, it's almost unfair to get angry at people who don't understand because we have a mindset that people who don't suffer from anxiety will never, ever truly grasp,
right?
Never, ever really understand, right?
Our brains literally work differently. But I want to shout out, I want to talk directly to everybody who is in a management position right now.
Oh, please.
So one of the positive benefits of being traumatized and having PTSD and having to deal with that is that now I understand mental health issues better, and I understand anxiety and depression and a whole scope of mental health issues much better. So when I joined Joystick and had my crew there, I made it very, very clear to them that work-life balance was important. Mental health is a part of that. And you don't have to, because this is what happens. You lie, right? Yeah. You'd be like, you're just having a bad brain day, but you don't want to say that to a person. So you'll be like, oh, I have a cold. Yeah. I'm like, guys, you never have to lie to me. Don't do that. If you're depressed, if you're anxious, because our jobs are stressful, just tell me. And it's cool. And I made it possible for all of them to be very open with me about those things. And they would tell me like, hey, my brain hates me today. I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, cool. Not a problem. And it was never a problem. So I would encourage anybody who manages folks or is in a leadership position of any kind, as a coach, as a teacher, an older sibling, maybe you're an RA at school, whatever, make it matter of fact like that. Make sure the people that look up to you or respond to you or answer to you know that you get that this is a thing and you're chill and it's not a big whoop, and then it won't be a big whoop, and you will be giving them an enormous gift.
Well, especially if your manager, because the thing is that anxiety is a lot more common than people think it is. There are millions upon millions of people out there with anxiety, and if you're a manager, just as Susan was saying, you probably have somebody working for you who has anxiety. So if you're a manager figure or an authority figure with anxiety, you have unique insight into how these individuals that are working for you feel. So I think that's something that's important to note too, is that you are uniquely placed in order to help and provide that extra level of mentorship for people who are working under you who may be suffering from something similar. And
it's 1 in 4, by the way. That's the statistic.
That's
it's 1 in 4.
Crazy.
People. Yep.
God,
same percentage as cancer. 1 in 4 people get cancer. 1 in 4 people have a mental illness of some sort.
Jesus. You know,
I mean, that's just. But don't Jesus it. Like, let's just, we got to normalize it, right? Like, this is super common. 25% of people have some kind of mental health issue. You're not a freak. The people that you meet who have anxiety or depression or PTSD or OCD or any host of things, it's just how the brain works. Yeah.
You know what I think is really important for people? This is kind of an anecdote I gave the very first night we did this podcast, but that was months and months and months and months ago. We've got people listening now who I guarantee weren't listening then. So I'd like for everybody to give, or maybe an example of a coping mechanism they have. And a lot of this stuff, when we talk about coping mechanisms, they're different for everybody, right? Like I've got one that I use, and I've used it for, I want to say 13, 14 years. And it's unique to me because this was an experience in my life that nobody else I know that had. So if you were to go outside and do this, I don't think it's going to help you, because I'll tell you what I mean. So in 2004, I was in Iraq. I was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, and we were in Mahmoudiya, which is about 10 kilometers south of Fallujah. We were involved in the second Battle of Fallujah, which was the bloodiest battle of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Lost a lot of people, lost some friends. It's where I was wounded. And there was one night, we had been there for about 3 months, and there was one night where I went up to the roof of this old abandoned chicken factory, it's a chicken slaughtering factory that we were kind of holed up in. My battalion, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines. And I was sitting on the roof and I was smoking cigarettes. I didn't smoke, but we all fucking smoked in Iraq. It's the only way we can cope. I was sitting up there, I was wearing my flak vest and my Kevlar, and I was looking up at the sky. It was about maybe 9 p.m. I had my rifle with me, and, say what you want about that time period and what was going on, but Arabic nights are beautiful because there's not a lot of light on the ground. So on a very clear night, and almost every night in the Middle East is clear, you can see stars for literally miles. I mean, I had never seen anything like it in my life, right? And so I'm sitting out there in a state of complete stupor, right? Like my mind was blank. At this point, a numbness had washed over all of us. And the lives and the friends and the people that we left behind at this point seemed something like we had imagined or conjured up, as opposed to anything that was tangible or real that we were going to go home to. And so I'm just sitting out there with this blank state, and all of a sudden in the sky I noticed something different. It wasn't a star. It was blinking, and it was moving. And I realized, and as it came, I was like, what the fuck is that? And as it moved closer, I realized it was a commercial jetliner. Now, I had not seen one of these in about 3 or 4 months. And I had forgotten what they looked like. And so I was looking at it, and I found myself staring at it and just watching it move slowly across the night sky. And I started thinking about who was on that plane, and where was it coming from, and where was it going? Did they have any idea what was happening on the ground 3 or 4 miles below them? And I watched the plane with just like what I imagine was probably the hungriest expression on my face that I've ever had, until I couldn't see anymore. Plane was gone. And in that moment, I realized that the rest of the world wasn't as far away as I thought it was. And that thought filled me with comfort. And so now, every time since then for 13 or 14 years, whenever my anxiety starts getting the best of me and whenever I start panicking, I go outside and I find a plane. I live in the middle of nowhere, so they're easy to find. I find a plane and I look up at it and I follow it until I can't see it anymore. And I imagine, I think about who's on that plane, what they're doing, and where they're going, and it reminds me that no matter how heavy things may seem in that moment, no matter how bad things may seem, the rest of the world isn't as far away as I think it is. Now, that's my coping mechanism. Now, obviously, that's not going to work for everybody because it's an experience that was unique to me. So I was wondering, does anybody else on this panel have like a unique coping mechanism that they use, like that you have plucked from your own personal life that greatly helps you in a time like that?
I will sometimes make lists.
No, dude. There's nothing wrong. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I will sometimes make lists if I feel. A lot of times, my anxiety stems from being overwhelmed, and if I'm overwhelmed, then it means there's a lot of competing thoughts. And the only way that sometimes I can put them in order is to just write them all down. And sometimes it's a to-do list. And sometimes it's I'm overwhelmed by the amount of things that need to get done. Even if there's no time limit, even if nobody is putting pressure on me, I just see all these things that need to get done and I just can't handle it because I don't know where to start. So I will write down a list. Sometimes it's an order of operations. Sometimes if it's one thing that's really overwhelming me, I can write down everything that's been done so far, and I can write down, kind of everything that needs to happen in order to see it to the end of the task. Even if that's not necessarily a to-do list, it's just things that need to happen in order for this to resolve itself. So writing it down and actually seeing it on paper creates a chronology to it, so that I can actually see the path forward, because when it's all a jumble, when it's all of these things at once, when really there are sets of dependencies, it's helpful to kind of surface those dependencies so I don't feel like this thing that is 6 steps down the road that there's no way I could do now even if I wanted to. I know where it exists in the order of things and what's in my control. And I can actually lay out, here are the things that are not in my control that I need to happen. There are typically things I can do at certain points to facilitate those things happening, but ultimately they're not on my shoulders. So I just need to stay aware of them and where they are in the process. And typically, if there is something I need them, big whomever they are, to do before I can progress, there are things I can be doing at the same time, so I don't feel like. Whereas surfacing these things in a chronology helps, it can also surface things that can happen simultaneously, so that where bottlenecks start to cause anxiety because they're out of my control, there are things I can redirect and refocus my attention on that can progress the overall picture and give me a measure of control.
So it sounds like what helps you is basically bringing forth order from chaos and providing yourself that structure that you need.
Yep. And now I'm going to give you kind of the weird way that sometimes presents itself. So there sometimes menial tasks that have tangible results make me feel better. It's again, that's kind of finding something that I can control, even if there's this whole huge thing out here that I can't. Giving myself something to focus on and something that I can do that has some perceptible results. So, for instance, there were some things that started causing anxiety a couple of weeks ago. I sat down and it's like, I had to reinstall Windows a number of weeks ago, and it's like kind of screwed up everything. It's like, well, all that stuff is now back in order. But the one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't remodded Skyrim. So I use a guide to do that. So I went through, it's called STEP, in case anybody wants to do that, Skyrim Total Enhancement Project. And there's this whole guide of how to do this and which mods, and it's completely curated. And it's like you're just going through and you're adding the mods and you're following the instructions. And it's like, I'm in control of this. And if something goes wrong, I can diagnose what went wrong and I can figure out how to make it work. And it was this whole thing where I had control over this. I have no control over all of this other stuff, but this was something that I had control over. And ultimately, it helped quiet my mind.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's fantastic. And again, it sounds like what helps you is kind of giving yourself some sort of structure, some sort, almost like a ladder, I guess, right? And like every one of those tasks you assign yourself is a rung in the ladder, and task after task. This is a dumb analogy, but this is my way of kind of compartmentalizing it. I can't fucking ever say that word. And
you should just put it on a sign and just hold it up.
That's what I'm gonna start using flashcards for all the words that my dumbass Marine brain can't pronounce. Thanks a lot, Marine Corps. But I wanna go to Taylor and then Susan, and then we'll close it out. Taylor, do you have something that you would like to add as far as like a coping mechanism goes that kind of helps you whenever you feel this really getting jacked up, really amped up?
Well, my biggest thing really is escapism of any kind. It's just I can't be in this point in time right now. So I think the last time I was on, I talked about how I'll play video games and how I'll go to Skyrim especially, and I'll just live through that life. But another thing I will do is I'll watch videos of YouTubers that I really like, and I'll live in YouTube world for a couple of hours, and then I'll come back to reality slowly. But
so Taylor, I will point out that sometimes you can play the right video games to help your anxiety, and sometimes you can play the wrong video games. Like I made the mistake one night, and everybody who knows me knows, one of my favorite games of all time is anything in the Dark Souls series. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you're feeling massive anxiety, do not
the game to play.
Do not go play Dark Souls.
Yeah, I don't even play Dark Souls to begin with. I feel like that game would give me anxiety.
I am not proud to tell you what happened to my controller. It's more of like I threw it on the ground and kind of punched it a couple times. But all I'm going to tell you is this. When you're coming off a panic attack, don't try to go fight Ornstein and Smoke. That's all I'm going to say. Don't be like, you know what? I'm going to hop into Dark Souls. That'll calm me right the fuck down. Like, no, that doesn't work.
Maybe Flower. Flower would be
Stardew
good.
Valley.
Or Journey, Stardew Valley, right? Yeah. Maybe I just needed to hear the Call of Duty, so to speak. You know what I mean? But I'm so clever. But okay. And Susan, do you have a coping mechanism that you would like to share with everybody?
Absolutely. It depends. Which one I use depends on the situation at the time, because, as you all know, we don't get to choose when anxiety decides to fuck with us.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I need to be working. I need to get something done. I can't, spend 3 hours playing a video game or whatever. I need to just manage it as best I can. In those situations, I go for a run. I have a treadmill in my house because ain't nobody running in the South in the summer. Sorry. And that helps remarkably, because a big part of what causes anxiety is being trapped in your head and not being able to break these loops that are really aggravating you. For me, going for a run and pushing myself physically, I have to focus everything on my body, on my breathing, on my posture, on my knee, on all of these different things. I can't be thinking about the stuff that's upsetting me because I am completely physically in this moment. And I'm like that for however long I run. And then when I'm done, it's hopefully given me enough of a mental break that, the anxiety has ratcheted down. Because normally if you could just release the valve a little bit, you can bring yourself back to normal. So that's like for an anxiety attack kind of thing. If I'm just in a situation like, I don't know, getting laid off from work, as an example, cranking up my anxiety on a daily basis.
Yes.
When it's not a specific thing that is setting me off, but it's an ongoing situation. Like, needing a new job, I watch horror movies.
That's what I'm talking
That's an
about.
interesting one.
Yes. Well, here's what's really great about horror movies, assuming you're a person who enjoys horror movies.
Hell yes.
I do love them.
There is a clearly defined problem. Thing X wants to harm person. Maybe it's a ghost. Maybe it's a disease. Maybe it's a serial killer. Whatever it is, thing wants to hurt person. Solution, defeat thing.
You know, Susan, that sounds a lot like my attitude towards combat. Like how it doesn't
exactly.
It doesn't frighten me because I know what the enemy is, right?
Right. Like it makes it a known, right? Like here is this, because anxiety is the thing that wants to do you harm, or the ongoing problem that is cueing your anxiety is the thing that wants to do you harm, and you can't do anything about it. In a horror movie, you've got this overwhelming force trying to do you harm, but you can fight it. You can do something about it. You can run away or hide or attack it, or there's a plan, right? And then typically the final girl or whatever wins. They get away. Happy ending. Not always. Oculus does not have a happy ending, and it's fucking genius. But it's often literally slaying demons, and it soothes me. As people get really creeped out when I say that watching people hack to pieces soothes me. But
it's good. Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah,
it's a good feeling. Just imagine that the person getting hacked is somebody that you don't like.
See, I don't do that.
I'm just kidding.
I don't do that.
So I will point out that my wife is in chat, and I've been trying to get her to watch horror movies for years. Honey, you have anxiety just like I do. Horror movies are very therapeutic. I'm just pointing it out.
Like, okay, here's an example. My favorite kinds of horror movies are what I call environmental horror, which is people getting stuck in an environment, and the environment wants to harm them.
You mean like The Happening?
But good.
That's what I was waiting for.
One of my favorites is Frozen. No, not the Disney one. It's about
the wolves.
The wolves, right? These three kids. They're up on a chairlift. They get stuck up there. Nobody knows they're on the chairlift because they sneak in, and the ski resort shuts down for the week. So okay, you're 30 feet up in the air. No one knows you're there. Nobody's coming. What do you do? Like these are things you can get your head around, right?
Such a
like
good movie too.
I think what I would do if I were in that situation, right? Like it gives you a focus for mean thing that wants to harm you. Here's my plan.
I'm not gonna lie, Susan. I am a visual creature, and sometimes when I picture myself battling my own anxiety, I literally think, not a Frozen, but it's close, that scene at the end of The Grey when Liam Neeson is a badass and takes knives and broken glass to his fists, and he's about to fight the alpha wolf.
Yeah.
That's how I feel sometimes when I'm going. I've got nothing but what I have around me, and I'm up against this. And what's ironic is that Winston Churchill, who dealt with depression and anxiety, called it his black dog. He battled his black dog for his entire life. And so that is what I do as well. I had that mental picture in my head of fighting that fucking wolf. But now I just want to watch Frozen now. It's such a good movie. It is
really good.
You tell people that, hey man, you want to watch a great horror movie? Watch Frozen, and they're like, they're like, which? No, most people like, you mean the fucking Disney musical where the girl has ice powers? And I'm like, no, not that Frozen.
No, not that one.
Yeah,
the other one.
Yes, exactly.
Or The Descent.
That is so much better than the second one, by the way. The second one
the second one is garbage, but the first one is the best modern horror movie ever made.
With the ending that does not involve her.
Oh yeah, no, the original ending. Yeah.
That is I love bleak endings in horror movies. I don't know, maybe I'm just a nihilist, but I just love them. But anyway, we've hit about an hour, and that's about as long as I wanted to go with this. Because talking about this, I mean, it's difficult for Eddie. It's difficult for everybody, and but I think it's important. I think it's an important topic to discuss, and I'd like to start. For anybody in chat who felt like this helped, I'd like to start doing this more, even if it's just me sitting here talking to you guys. I'm gonna start doing this more because it's not just therapeutic for people with anxiety who listen to it, but it's therapeutic for me too. And maybe some of you guys will come back and listen to me ramble, and maybe you won't. But I hope this helped. I know it helps me. And I wanted to, before we go, Susan, you help run an organization that's very relevant to what we're talking about. And if you don't mind, I'd like you to give that a really big good plug.
Sure. It's called Take This. Mike volunteers for us at every PAX he attends, I think. And we started it back in 2012. Its goal is to increase, awareness and empathy and education for mental health issues within the gaming community. You can learn more at takethis.org. We have materials to help you figure out if it's time for you to visit a therapist, to learn more about conditions like anxiety or depression or OCD. We have resources both for those who have these conditions and those who don't, who just want to know more and want to know how to help the people in their lives who maybe do have it. So it's takethis.org. Yeah, and as always, your support is very much appreciated.
I just want to point out, I'm very much looking forward to getting my Psychomancer plushie.
They're so awesome. Oh my God, we have the prototype downstairs.
I can't wait.
They're so freaking awesome.
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to adding this thing to my collection here that Mike was complimenting. So anyway, yes, Taylor, thank you for pointing that out in chat. If you guys want to know when the next episode is going to be, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. Again, I want to do these maybe on a bi-weekly basis. You can follow me at Mr. Megative. Hey, Carlo's in chat. What's up, Carlo? At Mr. Megative on Twitter. And if you guys need to talk, Carlo and Taylor will both attest. My DMs are open. You guys can talk to me, even if you don't know me. If you guys suffer the way we suffer, then you're family to me. You're my brothers and sisters, and I'm going to do whatever I can to take time out of my schedule to talk you through this. I've been dealing with this my entire life. I can't make it go away. Nobody can ever make it go away, but with that support network, we can keep it from getting really bad. So, I want to thank Mike. This is the first time you've been on our channel, so thanks so much for coming on, man.
My pleasure, really, my pleasure.
And Susan, as you know, it is always a pleasure to have you on.
We need to get together more frequently.
We really do. I really miss you, and you are the best, Susan, and we absolutely need to do this more often.
We really do.
And Taylor, thank you so much for being back. I know that this is a tough subject for you to talk about, but you're so brave. You're so incredibly brave, and I don't think you give yourself enough credit. Seriously, thank you so much, Taylor. You're one of the bravest people I know, and I hope you'll be back on for the next one.
Definitely. All you got to do is hit me up.
Awesome. Well, just real quick, guys, in case you are not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We really appreciate that. We're about maybe like 3 away from 800 subs. We're trying to grow. We're trying to get big. And if you don't always feel like talking about anxiety, this is also a games-focused channel, and you can always go watch the podcast that gets a lot more viewership than this one does, which is Super Deformed Gamescast, which goes live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about video games, not anxiety. Susan has been on the podcast. We've also had, for anybody who's just tuning in, we've also had Mike Huber a couple times. He'll actually be back on in the next few weeks. We've had Cal Bossman, Mike Laidlaw, Jason Schreier's been on, all good friends of ours. So if you guys would like this video and subscribe and retweet it, or subscribe to the channel and retweet the video. Don't subscribe to the video. I don't think you can actually do that. We would really, really appreciate that. So thank you once again for everybody in the panel, and thank you to everybody in chat who came and listened to us. I hope you all take care of each other and be good to each other. And again, please reach out to me if you want to talk. I will always, always, always listen.
Should we give out our Twitter handles?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Follow us. I'm at Susan Arndt. It's incredibly imaginative, I know. SUSANARENDT. Michael?
At Futterish. FUTTERISH.
And Taylor, what about you?
I am at Zebra Fries, or Zebra Fries, however you prefer to say it, and that's ZEBBRAFRIES.
Zebra Fries. That name always makes me. I don't know why, but that name always makes me laugh.
It's weird, but you remember it.
Yeah, no, that's true. Every time I hear it, I think of steak fries, and I start getting hungry.
Oh Jesus, steak fries.
I'm not gonna. We're not even gonna. I'm not gonna go to the steak fries road.
We don't have another 2 hours.
Especially not when Matt is not here to talk about it.
Waffle fries are the best.
Although I will point out, Matt, I know you're listening, that the director of the Dragon Age series did say that steak fries are the best fries. So I mean, if they're good enough for Mike Laidlaw, they're good enough for you.
Except he's Canadian, so his taste is suspect.
That's true. I mean,
but they also have poutine, which in the Fry family kind of beats everything.
I'm not gonna lie though.
That's like, okay, you can't go poutine to fries. It would be like poutine to like loaded cheese fries.
See,
and
like
poutine would still win, but
like I get that poutine is delicious, but every time I hear it, I think of Vladimir Putin. And I can't get over that mental hump because
you're gonna have to get past that because poutine is amazing.
Poutine,
it really is.
I've actually never had it.
Oh, right.
Sorry, I'm not from Canada.
I just discovered. My husband and I went to go see Wonder Woman in theater. We don't go out to the movies much because, well, we're nerds, and we have an amazing TV. And we were in the shopping center, and we're like, "Hey, let's get dinner while we're out. Oh, here's a new restaurant. Let's try that." And they had poutine, so I finally got to try poutine. It was amazing.
That actually,
so good.
I had a friend of mine. He had poutine, and they drizzled like truffle oil on it, and it actually does sound really good. I'm not gonna lie.
You gotta have proper gravy though, like actual legit gravy.
Yep. All right,
and
we have
Montreal
to stop.
beef if you can get it.
We have to stop talking about poutine now. We can't. I can't do this anymore.
So this is the mental health podcast where we talk about food,
pickles, and mustard, and poutine, and video games, and anxiety related health issues. That's what we talk about here. Anyway, thank you everybody for hanging out with us, and hopefully we will see you back in another 2 weeks. Be good to each other. Thanks, guys.